Our economy is rigged. The rich get richer, poor get poorer, and the middle class struggles. Our campaign finance system is totally corrupt. Billionaires can now pour as much money as they want into both political parties. And climate change is ravaging our country and the world with unprecedented levels of extreme weather disturbance.
Elon Musk is clearly unwell, both mentally and physically. And that was abundantly clear during a press gaggle that he held with Donald Trump in the Oval Office, asked several questions about his conflicts of interest, his corruption, and his clear breaking of the law in Doge. But it was one question that Elon was asked about lies that he continues to tell that triggered him to make one of the weirdest and worst decisions he possibly could admit to his own lies and corruption. It was crazy and really just shows how much he is losing it up here. He's a lot like Donald Trump in that way. And we are going to get into that all in this crazy press conference and the moment I think everybody missed. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me now. Before we get into that question from Elon, there were two others that really stood out to me and showing just how crazed he's gotten. And I want to take a look at that first one right here.
If you have received billions of dollars in contracts from the Pentagon, and the president's directing you to look into the Department of Defense, is that a conflict of interest?
And are going to do at the president's request.
Does that present a conflict of interest for you?
No, because you'd have to look at the individual contract and say, first of all, I'm not the one, filing the contract. It's people at SpaceX or someone who will be putting for the contract. And I'd like to say, if you see any contract where where it was awarded to SpaceX and it wasn't by far the best value for money for the taxpayer, let me know, because every one of them was.
The president said the other day.
Now, I brought this up before, but it seems like Elon is keeping his conversation channel with Donald Trump as limited as possible. Neither of them wants the liability of any discussion of Elon Musk's conflict of interest, and clearly Elon thinks that if he just doesn't bring it up, it won't matter if there's no light on it. He can be free to be as corrupt as he wants. Of course, that's not the case. And reporters need to be pushing on him more on this. Elon Musk has the direct ability now to cancel government contracts with his own competitors. I don't really know what could be more corrupt than that, but it seems like Elon is working every single day to find what could be. But again, clearly he wants no part of this question, and Donald Trump doesn't even seem to care. I don't think that they're talking about this. It really wouldn't surprise me if they are, but one thing they're clearly working on is pushing a false narrative for Donald Trump, which is what Elon said right here.
Detractors, Mr. Musk.
I have to what?
Including a lot of Democrats.
I have detractors?
You do, sir.
I don't believe it.
Say that you're orchestrating a hostile takeover of government and doing it in a non-transparent way. What's your response to that criticism?
Well, first of all, you couldn't ask for a stronger mandate from the public. The public voted, we have a majority of the public voting for President Trump. We won the House, we won the Senate. The people voted for major government reform. There should be no doubt about that. That was on the campaign. The president spoke about that at every rally. The people voted for major government reform, and that's what the people are going to get. They're going to get what they voted for. And a lot of times, people that don't get what they voted for, but in this presidency, they are going to get what they voted for. And
this is maybe the most important lie we have to call out in all of the Trump administration, because it's what they are basing their illegal actions on. They are saying that Donald Trump had this huge victory, this overwhelming mandate to go in and do whatever he wanted with our government, to install Pete Hegseth, to destroy the Department of Education, to go forward and act in whatever criminal manner he wanted. But that's just not true. Donald Trump won by a very very narrow margin in a couple of swing states on the belief that he would lower cost. That is what he won for, and of course he was never going to do that. And I'm disappointed that voters didn't realize after years and decades, really, of Donald Trump's corruption and scams that he doesn't have any interest in that. But that is what Donald Trump was in theory elected to do. And that is the lie that we have to target. He doesn't have some overwhelming mandate. Voters didn't send him to Washington to destroy our government and to lie doing it. But that's clearly what Elon thinks. And speaking of those lies, he admitted to one of them in this clip right here.
Mr. Musk, you said on X that an example of the fraud that you have cited was $50 million of condoms was sent to Gaza. But after fact-check this, it apparently Gaza in Mozambique, and the program was to protect them against HIV. So can you correct the statements? It wasn't sent to Hamas, actually. It was sent to Mozambique, which makes sense why condoms was sent there.
Yeah.
And how can we make sure that all the statements that you said were correct, so we can trust what you say?
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes. I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms to anywhere, frankly. I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about.
He's just coming out and saying it now. He doesn't even care. Yeah, sure, I'm going to lie. Yeah, sure, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to push misinformation. That's not how this works. Of course, it's not how it works, because Elon Musk, the richest man in the history of the world, the biggest political donor and the biggest government contractor, shouldn't be making unilateral decisions for the entirety of the U.S. government that's starting there. But you don't just get to push this misinformation, push these lies to serve your agenda, but that is what it's all about for Donald Trump. He doesn't just like having Elon Musk around because he likes billionaires, and he wants someone who's equally interested in being corrupt and criminal with him. It's because Elon controls so much information with his ownership of Twitter. And that is really what this is all about, is about pushing a false narrative about what Doge is doing, trying to make people think that it's trimming the fat and getting rid of the waste, when in fact the organizations that they are going after and targeting, like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, sure, it costs $700 million a year, but brings in $23 billion in savings for American taxpayers. That is a good trade-off. I think they're a pretty good return on investment. Why is Elon going after it? Because it impacts his corrupt businesses. It's all an information war. That is what this is about. And it's part of what Bernie Sanders called out. And a great takedown of Musk right here.
Before the 1770s, before the creation of the United States and the writing of our Constitution, the ruling class of that time governed through a doctrine called the divine right of kings. The belief that the King of England was an agent of God, that God appointed him, and that he was not to be questioned by mere mortal human beings. He was appointed by God. In modern times, we no longer have the divine right of kings. What we now have is an ideology being pushed by the oligarchs, which says that as a very, very wealthy group of people, often self-made, often the masters of revolutionary new technology, and as high IQ individuals, it is their absolute right to rule. In other words, the oligarchs of today are our modern-day kings. And Mr. President, it is not just power that they want. Despite the incredible wealth that they currently have, they want more and more and more. Their greed has no end. Today, Mr. Musk is worth $402 billion. Mr. Zuckerberg is worth $252 billion, and Mr. Bezos is worth $249 billion. With combined wealth of $903 billion, these three people own more wealth than the bottom half of American society, 170 million Americans. And not surprisingly, since Trump was elected, their wealth has soared. Musk has become $138 billion richer, Zuckerberg has become $49 billion richer, and Bezos has become $28 billion richer since Election Day in November. Meanwhile, Mr. President, while the very rich become much richer, 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 85 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured in terms of health care. 25% of our seniors in this country are trying to survive on $15,000 a year or less. 800,000 Americans are homeless, and we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. And real inflation-adjusted wages for the average American worker has not gone up in 50 years. Does anyone really think that the oligarchs give a damn about ordinary Americans? Trust me, they don't. Musk's decision to dismember USAID means that tens of thousands of the poorest people in this world will either go hungry or die of preventable diseases. Tens of thousands of people. But it's not just USAID and what's happening abroad. Here in the United States, mark my words, if we do not stop them, they will soon be going after the health care, nutrition, housing, and educational programs that protect the most vulnerable people in our country, all so that they can raise the money they need to provide huge tax breaks for themselves and for other billionaires. As modern-day kings who believe they have the absolute right to rule, they will sacrifice without hesitation the well-being of working people in order to protect their power and their privileges. Further, they will use the enormous media operations they own to deflect attention away from the impact of their policies while they entertain us to death. Mr. Musk owns Twitter. Mr. Zuckerberg owns Meta, which includes Facebook and Instagram. And Mr. Bezos owns the Washington Post and Twitch. Further, they and their fellow oligarchs will continue within our corrupt campaign finance system to spend huge amounts of money to buy politicians in both major political parties. Bottom line, the oligarchs, with their unlimited amounts of money, are waging a war on the working class of our country, and it is a war that they are intent on winning. Now, I'm not going to kid anybody. The problems that our country faces right now are enormously serious, and they are not easy to solve.
The consolidation of corporate media into the hands of very few billionaires increasingly should terrify everyone in the country when the interest of larger corporations holding companies and conglomerates is more important to CEOs and billionaires than actual journalism. We have a pretty big problem, and that's the case right now. That's why we are seeing so much corruption. That's why we see the CEOs of information platforms alongside Donald Trump at his inauguration. And it's why we have to work so much harder to push back against the lies of his administration. Because it's not just Republicans against Democrats anymore. It's not just liberals versus conservatives. It is this resistance against Donald Trump up against the literal information platforms we have to use to combat their lives. We are fighting a battle on multiple fronts. And that is why the work that we're doing here is so important. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you're stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.